Hello, and welcome to Drawing with Coach Ellie. As you may know, Wednesday was meant to be yoga day. Unfortunately, I was feeling a little under the weather and unable to film a yoga routine. So, this is my makeup for that. Very sorry, and thankfully, I'm feeling a lot better today. We'll be back to our normal schedule next week. Okay, so to start, I have out a pencil, pen, black marker, colorful pens, crayons, and colored pencils. You can use any of these things, but I recommend at least having some colored pencils and a marker. To start, we'll be talking about how to make a bold drawing using outlining to do so. I'm going to draw a square, a circle, and a triangle to demonstrate on. I'm going to take one of my colored pencils and I'm going to shade in the square, just coloring it in, trying to stay inside the lines. Doesn't have to look great, it's just about getting that colored in. And then for my circle, I'm going to be coloring it in with crayon. You can follow along and switch to crayons if you have that option available, but if not, it's completely okay to just keep coloring it in with what you do have. And now I'm going to color in the triangle. Again, I'm going to be using colored pencil, but that's just because I prefer them. Okay, so now I'm taking my blue pen, which I don't have markers, so that's why I'm using it. I recommend that you use your marker for this. You're going to outline, your square. So you want to use whatever color you used on the inside in marker form. So if I had colored my square, purple, I would have outlined it in purple. And just like I'm going to do here, because I colored my circle in green, I am going to outline it in green pen. Now for the triangle, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to outline it in black, just so that you can see what that looks like. Sometimes, whenever you're drawing or coloring or whatever it might be, you might need a harder, more defined bold line, and that's what the black is good for. And this is for our, bold drawings for whenever you really feel like it's going to look nice that way. It's always at however you want to do it. Oh, and I forgot to mention that black is really good if you're trying to separate colors. So I drew a little triangle next to my triangle, and I'm going to color it in red so that you can really get an idea of what that looks like. So if you have a drawing where there's multiple colors and you think it would look weird if you outlined it in the same colors that, you have on there, black is a good option for that. Moving on, we're gonna practice what I call flat coloring. So there are multiple ways to color, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about here. So we're going to do our same thing here with the square and the circle and the triangle. Hold on, let me fix my triangle. It's a little bit crazy. Okay, so you can color in, going straight down. See how I'm holding the pencil, the tip of the pencil straight down onto the paper? And it's a lot more difficult to fill in the space that way, and it comes out very dark. So another way you can do it is you can hold your pencil sideways. See how I'm holding it sideways so that the edge of the pencil is on the paper, and then you gently move it that way. And see how it's lighter? That's important because maybe, it gives you a little bit more control over how much you put. I'm going to go ahead and put another triangle, circle, and square down underneath so that I can continue with my demonstration. Okay, so same thing here. I'm showing you in the triangle with a different color that it's difficult to fill it in. It looks darker, harsher. It's just not as pretty sometimes, and it's a lot easier to fill in and control how much color you put whenever you go to the side, like we're doing in this triangle. And I'm going to show that you can do the same thing with your crayon. So you see I'm drawing from top down using the crayon. You can kind of see the lines. Whereas whenever you're going from the side with your crayon, it's a smoother, more uniform picture. And that's flat coloring. So, using those techniques, we're going to move on to practice shading. Shading is really important in drawing and coloring as you get older, or even now, and it has to do with your shapes. So starting with 2D shapes, which are flat shapes, like, just a normal square. And then there's also 3D shapes, which is, best described as, I guess, not flat, and it's more like real life. You'll see, I'll draw a picture. So a 3D shape in this case, instead of a square, it would be what's called a cube. See, the cube looks more like a box, while the square is more of a flat shape. And so whenever we're working with shading today, we're just going to be starting from the basics with 2D shapes. So again, we're going to start with our square. And then I'm going to grab my colored pencil. And I'm going to pinpoint a light source coming from the top right corner. So we're going to pretend like there's a lamp shining light onto the square. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use the flat coloring to make it lighter where your light is coming from. And then you're going to make it darker on the other side of that. And then you're going to very carefully make it go from dark to light. Take your time with this. It's not as easy as it looks, but all it takes is a little bit of practice. Now we're going to do the circle. I'm going to use it's what's called a compass, and it's used to make circles that are perfectly round. But if you don't have that, that's okay. It's not a big deal. It's more because I'm going to be demonstrating. So we're going to pick our light source, and I'm going to put my light source in the same spot. Now with, a circle, it's going to be different because we have that rounded edge there. See how I put the arrows? And it's curved. So you're going to have to draw curved lines whenever you're shading. And this is a lot more difficult than, just a normal square or even a triangle. So don't be frustrated if it doesn't turn out very good your first time. A lot of this stuff is kind of advanced. So the reason I'm teaching it to you now is so that you have the time to practice, and it'll give you something to do if you're getting bored or feeling antsy. It's always fun to just sit down and practice with your shapes like this. And there you go. So see how the circular lines kind of make it look very round? Now we're going to do our triangle. And again, I'm going to put my light source up there. And we're going to color it in using our shading technique, making it darkest in the part that is furthest away from the light. So all of these are going to be, 2D shading. And you can kind of apply this with any other shapes that you draw. Just remember, to pick a spot for your light, and it'll always be darkest in whatever part is furthest away. And the light doesn't always have to be up there. You can move it around to, the left side, to under, to over, to, directly on top. It doesn't matter. So now we're going to work on a technique called cross-hatching. Cross-hatching is another way that we can shade, and again, we'll be demonstrating this on circle, triangle, and square. Okay, so starting with my colored pencil again. And all of these shading techniques you can do with your crayon as well. So I'm drawing lines. I know it's kind of difficult to see. Sorry, I can't really move my camera around a lot. I'm drawing lines in the same way that we did it before. I forgot to write down where my light source is, but it's on the same spot that I had it in the last example. So you're going to do lines closer together, further away from, whenever it's like far away from the light, because it'll make it look darker. And then you'll do lines going in the opposite direction, moving up to make it even darker. So see how now I have that little corner very dark, and the light source is shown by less color. So I'm going to demonstrate this in pen as well, just it's a little darker and easier for you to see. So again, for the circle, I'm going to be kind of making it rounded. My lines are just a little bit rounded, but you can do it with straight lines if that's easier for you. So I'm doing lines going in one direction, and I put them closer together, and I put more of them as I'm in the darker area and further away from the light. And then I'm starting to do, going across those lines in the opposite direction to make it even darker. I know it's kind of difficult to see because the camera's really far away, and I'm sorry about that. It's difficult for me to see what it looks like on camera until afterwards. And now I'm going to show you that you can also do it with crayon, but first I'm going to make my triangle a little bit bigger because I recognize now that it is very small. Okay, same thing here. Darker lines towards the bottom, and then changing the direction of the lines to make it even darker. And the crayon's very thick, so it takes less lines to do this. So now we're going to work on the dotting technique. So this is another form of shading, just like before when we talked about cross-hatching, except it will be, different in its implementation. So we have a square, and then we have our circle, and then again with the triangle. So I'm using my marker for this, and I recommend doing the same. So this is very simple, very to the point. You're going to make a bunch of dots. And you're going to put the dots all over your square, but space them out as much as you can. And then to show your shading and the darker part, you're going to put a lot more dots in where, your shadow would be. And then in the middle, you'll put, a little bit more dots, but not as many as your shaded corner. There you go. See, and it'll give you a nice little fade into the darkness from the light using dots. And so I'm going to use a black marker to demonstrate on this one. And it's going to be the same thing as before. With the circle, you're going to want to do a little bit more of a rounded shading. So I'm putting my dots everywhere, and then I'm going to concentrate them the most going opposite of the light source. And there you go. So now I'm going to show you that, you can do it with crayon, but I definitely recommend it more with pen or marker because they make darker marks. And with the crayon, you'll have to kind of, move a tiny bit, which is kind of difficult. But I'm going to show you with a crayon anyway. And then, as I discovered, my crayon doesn't get quite as dark as I would like it to, so I'm gonna go ahead and trade it out for another type of red that I can kind of make that little corner darker and more to my liking. So, once again, we've got our bold drawings, our flat coloring technique, right? The pencil or colored pencil or crayon on the side of its tip instead of straight down. And then shading 2D objects, and using cross hatching and dotting. All of these are, very advanced art techniques, and don't be frustrated or upset if you don't get it on your first try. It's for fun, it's just so that you can practice and, give yourself something to do, and maybe it'll turn out some really cool artwork from you. So, let me know how this went. And again, I'm so sorry that I couldn't put out a yoga video this week, but we will be back with one next week. And I will also be posting our Friday painting together session. Thank you.